Hi. Hi, I'm Ayla, and this is my presentation. I'm talking about how stories affect humans and how can they be used, for good or for bad. Alright, so for starters, what is the story? Basically, it's me refocusing the camera. It's the telling of past events, fiction or non-fiction, and you can use them for entertaining or for learning purposes. So entertaining would be like movies, and learning would be like a TED Talk. And not everything is a story. You could argue that a lot of things, or almost everything, is a story, because a lot of things are the retelling of something else. But like this presentation is not a story. It's me telling you new information that you haven't heard before. I've heard it before, but you haven't. Fun fact, 65% of what we say every day is a story, meaning it like gossip, story, telling your friends what you did over the weekend, story, anything along those lines. Story. You get the idea. You're high school kids, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so first pro of storytelling is that it builds imagination, especially for young kids. And depending on what stories you tell a kid, it can build their worldview in different ways. Like if you only hear about sad stories, then that's all you're gonna think the world is sad and horrible. Like there's a 20-minute video, and I couldn't show it here because it's just too long. And it was rather sad, so I didn't want to show it. But it's basically an animation about a dog who finds a baby who is abandoned in the rain. And he's going around barking, trying to get, like, someone's attention. But instead of them following the dog to the baby, they just get annoyed by the dog and end up putting him down. And then they find the baby after he's been killed. And they're like, oh, we've made a mistake. And then it ends. And it's a really sad thing. So now you see why I didn't show it. But if that's all you saw as a kid, like they were like, welcome to the world, newborn, here's a sad show about a dog who died, like you would think the world sucked. Like, no part of that is uplifting or wonderful. None, no part of it. But tell me this, what if you only heard about happy stories? What, like for example, I have a video about a squirrel, if I can find my mouse.
This would be one of the places my little squirrel would love to live, right in here. And I want to show you a little piece of film that we made, and this is my little squirrel out on the big hunt. And he's out doing whatever squirrels do in the deep, deep woods. Look at this, isn't he the cutest little devil? He's fighting his way through the forest there. Uh-oh. There's the forest. For some reason, I don't really understand it. This little squirrel seemed to like a hare. I think it reminds them of their nest. But that's, if you haven't seen him before, that's the little squirrel we call Peapod, the pocket squirrel, because he likes to live in my pocket.
Bob Ross, everyone. We all know Bob Ross. He's lovely. He's a lovely guy. No part of anything Bob Ross has ever done has been like sad, unless he draws like a rainy scene or paints a rainy scene, and even that, it's just pretty. Like if you only watched Bob Ross videos growing up, you would think the world was wonderful and amazing. You'd appreciate all the little things about like seeing a sunrise or a snow-covered log cabin in the middle of the woods. I'm not entirely sure why you're looking at a snow-covered cabin in the middle of the woods and you're a child. I'm not questioning it, it's fine, no judgment. But basically, you would just appreciate it. And like, this man is a painter with an afro, and he's like a Disney princess with all of his little animal, deer, and squirrel friends. It's wonderful. So yeah, point of that, if you only watched happy stories, you would have a better mindset about life. And if you only watch negative stories, you're going to have a negative connotation about life. Let me just refocus. Okay. So, moving on. So, those are for more entertainment purposes or like growing up purposes. Now for teaching and education specifically, literature provides students with the opportunity to respond to literature and develop their own opinions about the topic, and literature provides an avenue for students to learn about their own cultural heritage and the cultures of other people. Crippen. So basically, stories allow both kids and adults to learn about the past and the possibilities of the future. Meaning, or like, for example, history class. It's literally just a teacher telling you stories, and then you take notes and you remember the vocab. That's it. They tell you stories about how Lafayette did this and that, or how King Louis the whatnot did who and who. I don't know. It's all just stories. Even recent stories about elections, politics, what people did, what someone else said on Twitter. They're all just stories. And then like possibilities of the future, things like history repeating itself. Like how there's been in every century, in 1820, in 1920, there was a plague, and I think in 1720 as well. And guess what happened in 2020? Whoa, Another plague. Wild. It's like history repeats itself or something. So you can use stories like that to predict what like weather patterns are gonna do, history in general are gonna do, what you might do. If you know that every day your alarm clock goes off at like whatever time and you won't get up, you can use the story of you not getting up at 5 a.m. to then change your alarm clock time to earlier so you have enough time to be angry about getting up in the morning. Stuff like that. In addition to that, you can use analogies, like I just did, and basically use them to teach. Like if someone is explaining to you an experience they had and they compare it to like when you bite a fork and you think you bit your tooth and broke it and it's just a horrid feeling. It's like akin to that of being scared in a haunted house. It's just a gross feeling. You can use stories like that to compare just basically anything to just make things more understandable for students or literally anyone else. Stories establish a really good imagination for kids and even adults. And if you establish imagination really early on, and then later when they use it to like, I don't know, create robots that are gonna land on Pluto, you're gonna have much better results from a person with a big imagination than a person with a bit of street smarts and no imagination to get to Pluto. Stories also teach emotions really well, like emotional intelligence. We all get sad. Don't say you don't, because I know you do. But we all get sad, we all experience emotions like that, and we all get over it. And especially when we're young, when we're like first developing and like trying to understand how that goes on, with like stories like this can really, really help with that. Like Calvin and Hobbes, for example, this is the very last panel of the Calvin and Hobbes series. The whole panel of it, I couldn't fit it all on the screen, but it's basically Calvin, the little boy, going, "It's a magical world, Hobbes, old buddy, let's go exploring," and then it ends. And if you'd been reading the series throughout your entire childhood, you'd be sad that it was over, because you'd want to hear more about their adventures. But this ending in particular is really good for young readers because it allows them to imagine their own ending to the story. Like, how does Calvin look as a teenager? What does he do in high school? How does that all go down? Maybe he has a kid. People have made a lot of art about like Calvin's kids and then like him giving Hobbes to his kids and his kids had the same experiences he had. And endings like this allow the creative freedom to do stuff like that. Okay, storytelling is not a new thing, as you're probably aware. This is the oldest cave painting that we've been able to find so far. The 4.5 meter long panel features reddish brown forms, which are on this side that are really hard to tell, that seem to depict human-like features hunting local animal species. Scientists say the scene is more than 44,000 years old. Callaway. Basically, storytelling has existed since humans existed. Like, we probably didn't look as human as we did now, and we're painting things on the walls to tell our buddies, like, "Ayo, that bull that we're eating for dinner that's like gigantic, yeah, I killed that with my bare hands," and they painted on the wall to show that. Or they paint stuff like this on the wall to show their technique to hunting it so that people in the future will understand how they hunted it and then they can survive as well. It's like a recipe for hunting 44,000 years ago. It's great. You could say recipes are a story. It's a story telling you how to cook. Once upon a time, flour or whatever, and you just start with the ingredients. There's some plot, and you end up with a cake, if that makes any sense. And stories are not just stories. They're not fake. They're not there just for entertainment purposes or learning purposes. They've got lessons along with like education. As Brave put it, legends are lessons. They ring with truths. In short, a lot of stories have a lesson to them. Like any movie with a happy ending proves that things can get better and you can get out of the hole that you may have dug yourself into and it'll be okay. Okay, so you understand it's a good thing. It's great. It's wonderful. Stories are cool. But why is it bad? Let me tell you. So, we've got different heads. We've all got a different way that our brains work and we interpret things. And different views allow confusion between messages or confusion in interpretation, especially when it comes to analogies. Like the analogy I used a couple seconds ago about cooking, that may have not made sense to a single one of you, but it made sense to me. But if it didn't make sense to you, then me telling you that is of no purpose and it didn't help. Basically, analogies are hard to get across, and if the message just doesn't get across because the story doesn't land, or it's hard to implement into someone who's more used to like to the point explanations, then it can just make things so much more confusing than they need to be. And in addition to just confusing people out of their minds, stories can give false hope to both children and adults alike. For example, you all know the Little Cricket Man. All you gotta listen to is like the first 4 lyrics.
who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you.
Okay, right off the bat. When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are, anything your heart desires will come true. Now, how many of you as a child heard this song and went, oh, all I gotta do to get that favorite toy I want for Christmas is wish on a star. All I gotta do to get spaghetti tomorrow for dinner is wish on a star. And then you wished on a star, and lo and behold, the next morning, you didn't get what you asked for? But basically, this is the most misleading message to give to every single kid. Everyone's heard this song. No, and every single person that I've ever asked who's heard this song has had something along these lines. Everyone's wished on a star to have something be better in their life, and it hasn't come true in one way or another. And it just disappoints kids. It makes them realize that, when they have the expectation to just believe and all of their wishes will come true, and then they're hit in the face with the reality that they have to do taxes and economics and homework before they actually have to, get to the good stuff, if they ever do, that's heartbreaking. What part of telling kids that all they have to do is believe is a good thing? Yeah, believe in yourself, but don't just hope. Hope isn't what's gonna get you anywhere in life. So that's a big downside of telling stories, is just crushing children's dreams. Okay, time to talk about me and my opinion on this subject. So I think storytelling is a good thing in heavy moderation. Okay, I don't know about heavy moderation, but just moderation. When I was around 13, I had read Harry Potter a total of 7 times and a million other fantasy series, and I hadn't read a lot of educational books just for fun. And so my mom, realizing that I was only ever into fantasy things and reality didn't sit well with me, she was like, okay, what we're gonna do is that you're not gonna read fantasy books anymore for a while until after you read these educational books. And she gave me some Bear Grylls books, and she read City of Z with us. And I did end up reading a lot of World War II books because I was interested in it, and I just got to learn some cool stuff. And for kids that didn't stop reading fantasy books and didn't read a lot of educational ones as a kid, because there are some kids out there that just stuck to fantasy, they are so disappointed that they're not in a dystopian society where they're the hero. If I grew up on that, and that's what I thought would happen by now. I thought when I was 17, I'd be doing spy stuff and riding dragons or whatever and doing magic. No, none of that's happened. I am recording a video at 11:12 at night for my English class. If you read and you tell stories too much, then it's just gonna implant false seeds in people's brains, and it's gonna mess up their interpretation of reality and make them want to be in our reality less, which leads to a lot of other mental health problems, and it's just not good. But if you mediate it and you give kids intelligent stories to read about, like Bear Grylls, City of Z, Unbroken, things like that, then they can learn about reality and become more interested in things that have to do with us than the fantasy worlds. A long time ago, in 7th grade, one of my good friends in Hawaii, we were talking about imagination, and I said, there's no such thing as too much imagination. And she says, there is actually, but only when the line between imagination and reality becomes blurred. And I could not agree more, and it's probably one of the most prominent things any of my friends have ever said to me. When I was a kid, that line was very much blurred, because I would go to hang out with my friends at recess, and so much of me wanted it to be real that I was flying and being another creature, regardless of what it was. But I wanted it to be so real, and I didn't want to be in elementary school anymore. I wanted to go do magic with people, but that's not feasible. And that line was very blurred. And then when I was 13 and I just kind of stopped reading it, it blurred less, cleared up a bit. In conclusion, basically, stories are best in moderation. Don't overuse them, and don't make things more complicated than they have to be by using strange analogies like I did earlier. But yeah. Thanks for listening. Here's my works cited page. Sorry if this was a little hodgepodgey. Yeah, have a good night.